The alarm screamed through the ship before I could even stand up. Red lights flooded the bridge, painting every face in the color of blood. I grabbed the edge of my console just in time. The floor shook so hard that coffee cups flew across the room and shattered against the far wall. Contact, multiple contacts, they came out of nowhere. The voice of our scanner officer, a young woman named Hannah Price, cracked with fear. "Sir, they are locking weapons on Earth." I stared at the main screen. The conquered ships were everywhere, 300 of them, 500. More kept appearing. They had been our friends for 20 years. They had sat at our tables. They had learned our songs. And now they were pointing every weapon they had at the blue planet below us. My name is Daniel Brooks. I was 38 years old that day. I had served on the Earth Defense Carrier Endurance for 11 years, and I was about to watch my world die. Captain Miles Turner stood up slowly from his chair. His face was white. "Open a channel," he said. "Every frequency, ask them why." The answer came back in one cold broadcast. It played on every screen and every speaker across our fleet at the same time. Species 7749, Earth. Your kind has been studied for 20 of your years. Your history shows a pattern that cannot be allowed to spread. Preemptive removal has been approved by the Conquered Council. This action is final. This action is now. The captain turned to me. His mouth opened. I will never know what he was going to say. A single beam of blue light cut through our forward hull. The bridge exploded around me. When I could see again, Captain Turner was gone. Most of the crew was gone. Only 3 of us were still breathing. All ships, I shouted into the comm. This is Commander Brooks of the Endurance. Captain Turner is down. I am taking command. Pull back to the dark side of the moon. Do not engage. I repeat, do not engage. "Sir Earth," Hannah's voice broke. "Sir, please look." I did not want to look, but I looked. The conquered ships did not fire one at a time. They fired together. 1,000 beams of light struck the planet at once. The oceans flashed white. The clouds peeled back. The continents glowed like hot metal. 93 seconds. That is how long it took. 93 seconds for 8 billion voices to go quiet forever. My mother had lived in a small house in the mountains. My sister had just had a baby girl last month. I had a photograph of that baby in my pocket. She was 3 weeks old. Her name was Lily. I did not cry. I could not cry. Something inside me turned to stone in that 93 seconds, and it has never turned back. "Commander," a hand touched my shoulder. It was Hannah. Her eyes were red. "Commander, we have 42 ships left, 7,000 people. What do we do?" I looked at the screen. The conquered fleet was already turning away. They were not chasing us. They did not think we were worth chasing. To them, we were already dead. We were a number in a report, a closed file. "We run," I said. My voice did not sound like my own. "We run and we hide and we wait. They think this is over. Let them keep thinking that." We jumped into the deep dark. We picked a nebula that the conquered maps marked as worthless. No minerals, no planets, no reason to look. We hid there like small animals hiding from something with teeth. For 3 weeks, nobody spoke above a whisper. People walked through the halls with empty eyes. A young engineer named Peter Lang walked into an airlock and did not come back. A doctor named Clara Hughes tried to follow him and had to be stopped. We had no counselors. We had no priests. We had nothing but the sound of our own breathing in the dark. On the 22nd day, I gathered every captain on my flagship. I looked at their broken faces. I did not give them hope. Hope would have been a lie, and they would have known it. "Listen to me," I said. "Earth is gone. Our families are gone. Every song we ever wrote, every book we ever read, every road we ever walked down is gone. That cannot be fixed. Nothing can fix that, but we are still here. 7,000 of us. And the conquered does not know we are still here. They have forgotten us already. That forgetting is the last mistake they will ever make." A captain named Oliver Grant stood up. He was older than me. His wife had been on Earth. His 3 sons had been on Earth. "What are you saying, Brooks?" "I am saying we build something," I told him. "I am saying we grow. I am saying we wait. It might take 10 years. It might take 100. But one day the conquered will hear a knock on their door, and when they open it, they will find us standing there. And on that day, I want every one of them to understand exactly what they did." Oliver Grant did not speak for a long time. Then he nodded once, just once. "My boys were Samuel, Peter, and Jacob," he said. "I want you to remember that." "I will remember," I said. One by one, the other captains stood and said the names of their dead. It took 4 hours. Nobody sat down. Nobody complained. When the last name was spoken, I wrote them all into a book with my own hand. That book has a title now. We call it the Ledger. It has many pages. It will have more. That night I sat alone in my quarters and looked at the photograph of Lily, 3 weeks old. She had her mother's eyes. I put the photograph into the ledger, right at the front. Then I made a promise to her, out loud, in a quiet room where nobody could hear me. "I am going to make the stars go quiet for you," I said. "I am going to make the whole sky still, and when it is done, nobody in this galaxy will ever forget your name." I was not a cruel man before that day. I want you to understand that. I had a small garden on my ship. I grew tomatoes and sweet peppers. I wrote letters to my mother every Sunday. I played chess badly. I liked dogs. I was a kind man. I was a good man. The conquered did not just take my world from me. They took the kind man I used to be, and they left a stranger in his place. That stranger had a list. That stranger had patience. That stranger was going to live a very, very long time. We began to build. We mined asteroids in silence. We recycled every scrap of metal. We taught ourselves to live on almost nothing. The children we had, and there were children, were born into a world of steel hallways and cold stars. They never saw grass. They never saw rain. They grew up on stories of a blue planet that used to spin in the warm light of a yellow sun. They grew up knowing exactly who had taken it. I was not soft with those children. None of us were. We taught them mathematics and engineering and tactics. We taught them to read in 6 languages. We taught them one word first before any other. That word was remember. Hannah Price, who had once been a scared young officer on my bridge, became the teacher of the first generation. She was very good at it. The children loved her. She never laughed anymore, but she smiled sometimes, and that was enough. On the 10th anniversary of Earth's end, I stood before our people and lit a small flame in a metal bowl. Inside the bowl was a handful of dirt. It was the last real Earth soil we had. It came from a potted plant that had somehow survived in a supply closet on the Endurance. When it was burned, there would be no more. "This is our oath," I said to the crowd. "We burn the last of her so that we never forget what was taken. We will not rest. We will not stop. We will not forgive. The conquered will learn one day that forgetting us was the worst thing they ever did." The flame went out. The ashes were placed in a small jar, and the jar was sealed, and the jar was placed at the bow of my flagship, where it would sail into every mission we would ever take. And then we kept building, quiet, patient, growing teeth in the dark. The years moved by us like quiet water. 10 became 20. 20 became 30. I watched my own hair turn gray in the mirrors of cold metal hallways. Hannah Price, who had been young on the day the sky burned, now wore glasses and walked with a small limp. The 7,000 of us had become almost 30,000. Most were born in the nebula. Most had never breathed real air. We called our home the Veil. It was a nebula so thick with gas and strange radiation that no conquered scanner could see through it. Inside, we had hollowed out asteroids, built farms of green light, and strung them together with long tubes of steel. Children played in the low gravity and did not know that the games they played were not normal. To them, the Veil was the world. Earth was a fairy tale, a sad one. It was in the 30th year that everything changed. A scientist named Nora Fisher came to my office. She was young, brilliant, and she rarely smiled. She carried a data pad in her hand, and her eyes were burning with something I had not seen in decades: hope. "Commander," she said, "I found something about them." Nora had been studying the Conquered her whole life. Her parents had smuggled her out of Earth at the age of 2, and she had grown up with one question in her mouth: what are they? How do they think? Where are they weak? "Sit down," I told her. "Talk to me." She sat. She put the data pad on my desk. On the screen was a diagram of a conquered brain. I had seen it before. It was not very different from ours. Gray matter, white matter, the usual parts. But Nora tapped one small, bright cluster near the base of the skull. "This is new," she said. "This is what they never told us about. The Conquered are not fully separate creatures. They are linked, all of them. Every Conquered in the galaxy is part of a shared mind, a web. When one of them feels something very strong, the others feel an echo of it. It is why they agree so easily. It is why they never have wars among themselves." I leaned forward. "You are telling me they are one single creature wearing a billion bodies?" "Not exactly. They are still individuals, but they are connected. And Commander, if something got into that web, if something spoke to every one of them at the same time, in the voice they trust most in the world, they would hear it. All of them. At once." I looked at her for a long time. My heart was beating slowly like a drum in a cold cave. "Can you do it?" "I can try," Nora said. "I will need time, I will need resources, I will need people, but yes, I think I can." I gave her everything she asked for. I would have given her my own 2 hands if she had needed them. While Nora worked, something else happened. A small scout ship returned from a long mission. The captain was a woman named Ava Lowell. She had been searching for an old story, a rumor that had been passed from officer to officer for decades. The story was this: before the Conquered came, Earth had secrets. Deep underground, on a hidden world far from the sun, old governments had buried things. Devices that had never been used. Projects that had been shut down, sealed in concrete and erased from every official record. The men who built them had gone to their graves without speaking of them. The paperwork had been burned. But one officer, dying on the bridge of a burning ship, had whispered a set of coordinates into a recorder before the end. That recording had been passed down to me through 3 hands, and I had sent Ava to find what was there. She found it. "Commander," she said when she stepped off her ship. Her face was pale. "You need to come see." I flew to the rogue planet myself. It had no sun. It drifted in the dark between stars, a cold rock with no name. But inside the rock, behind a door that had not opened in 200 years, we found the vault. I will not describe everything that was in there. Some of what we found, I still cannot bring myself to say out loud. There were devices that could fold space until a whole area simply stopped having a place in the universe. There were machines that could make a star turn its light away from its own planets. Our grandfathers had built these things in their worst and most frightened years, and they had hidden them because they were too heavy to carry. I stood in front of the main storage door for a long time. Ava stood beside me. She did not speak. She knew what I was thinking. "If we open this door," I said, "we become something I am not sure we can come back from." "The Conquered already decided what we are, Commander," Ava said quietly. "They decided 30 years ago. We are only choosing whether to agree with them or not." I opened the door. The devices came home with us. We studied them in deep silence. We tested them on dead asteroids where nobody could see the flashes. We improved them. We built more. Our engineers were the children of those who had first come into the Veil. They worked without complaining. They understood the cost. They had been taught since their first day of school that the galaxy owed a debt, and that they were the ones who would be collecting it. At the same time, Nora Fisher was making progress. One evening, she came to me with tears in her eyes. It was the only time I ever saw her cry. "I did it," she said. "I found the frequency. I can speak into their web. I can send a single message, clean and clear, to every conquered mind in the galaxy at the same time. What will they hear? Whatever we choose, she said. Any voice, any language, any words. I thought about that for a long time that night. I thought about the kind of man I had been once. I thought about Lily, who would have been 30 years old now if any of this had been different. I thought about Oliver Grant's 3 sons, and about Peter laying in the airlock, and about the jar of Earth ashes at the bow of my flagship. I made my choice. We spent another 10 years getting ready. We built a shadow fleet inside the Veil. It was not pretty. It was not shining. It was made of scraps and black metal and old purpose. It was built to do one job. We trained our people until they could do that job in their sleep. We whispered to them, over and over, that the galaxy would one day remember our name with a shiver, and that they would be the ones who put the shiver there. 40 years after Earth died, I stood on the bridge of my flagship. I looked out at the Veil, this cloud of gas that had hidden us for half my life. My hands were old now. My back hurt, but my eyes were clear and my voice did not shake. It is time, I said. We sent a single drone out into conquered space. It did not attack anything. It did not broadcast anything. It was a listener. It flew low and slow past a small conquered colony, one of thousands, and it watched. It watched a family in a garden, a mother and a father and 2 children. They were having a meal outside. The children were laughing. The parents were smiling. The garden had flowers. The flowers were yellow. The drone came back. I watched the recording in my private quarters. I watched it many times. I did not feel anything. That was when I knew I was ready. I called Nora to my office. I called Ava. I called Hannah Price, who was old now like me, and who had been with me since that first terrible day. We begin tomorrow, I told them. We do not declare war. We do not send warnings. We do not make speeches. We simply start, small at first, quiet, a whisper in the dark, and we let the whisper grow until the whole conquered hears it in their sleep. Hannah was quiet. Then she said, Daniel, do you remember the garden you had on the Endurance? Tomatoes and peppers. I used to walk past it after my shifts. I used to stop and look at the green. I remember. You were a kind man then. I know. She put her old hand on mine. She did not say anything else. She did not have to. We understood each other in the way only very old friends can. That night I walked down to the bow of my flagship, where the jar of Earth ashes sat in its small glass case. I put my hand on the glass. I made no speech. I said no prayer. I just stood there for a while, and then I went to my bed, and I slept deeply for the first time in 40 years. When I woke up, it was the morning of the first day of the reckoning. The Veil was behind us. The long silence was over. And somewhere out there, in 1,000 gardens under 1,000 quiet suns, conquered families were eating their meals and laughing and smiling, and they had no idea that the sky above them was about to learn a new sound. A quieter sound than it had ever known before. The first conquered outpost we emptied was a small research station on a moon called Varus 4. It was a quiet place. Only 90 researchers lived there. They studied plants. They were not military. I had chosen it carefully. I did not want to start with something loud. At 3 in the morning local time, 3 of our ships slipped out of the dark and approached the station on silent drives. No radio, no engine signatures, nothing. By the time the station's old scanner noticed us, it was too late for them to even send a distress call. We did not destroy the station. We took it, using one of the folded space devices from the vault. In one silent flash, the whole base was simply no longer there. It did not burn. It did not break apart. It just stopped being in that place. The researchers were moved to a holding world of ours, where they lived out the rest of their natural lives in comfort, growing plants in greenhouses we built for them. They never saw us. We treated them well, but their old homes and their old governments never heard from them again. We left the moon untouched. We left the garden beds, where they had been growing strange blue fruits, still alive and sleeping in their beds of soil. We took only the building. When the Conquered found out, it took them 6 days. A supply ship arrived and found an empty moon with a perfect square of flat ground where a station used to be. No wreckage, no signal, nothing. They decided it was equipment failure. They decided the station had sunk into an underground cave or had been hit by an unknown meteor. They filed a report. They sent a cleanup team. Nobody worried. A month later, we took an entire patrol fleet, 12 ships, 400 crew. They were traveling through a deep space lane between 2 conquered systems. Our ships were waiting in the shadow of a large ice asteroid. When the patrol passed, we folded space around them. We towed them, still intact, to another holding station. Their crews were well fed. They were given books and games. They simply never went home. This time the Conquered noticed. A patrol fleet does not simply vanish. They opened an inquiry. They sent investigators. The investigators found nothing. No radiation, no wreckage, no debris pattern, just empty space where 12 ships should have been. They began to whisper in their shared web that something strange was happening. I let them whisper. For the next 2 years, we took things from them piece by piece. A mining colony here, a shipping convoy there, a military listening post in a far sector. Each time we used different methods. Sometimes we used the space folding device. Sometimes we simply captured ships and towed them away into the dark, leaving no trace behind. We never took what we did not need to take. We never caused more suffering than we had to. But we took, and we did not stop. The Conquered began to fear. Not panic yet, just fear. A cold question in the back of their shared mind. What is taking our things? Where are they going? Why can we not find them? We never answered. We never spoke. We never claimed credit. That was the key to it all. A known enemy can be fought. A named enemy can be understood. An unseen thing that takes your people in the night is something much worse. It is a question with no answer, and questions with no answers eat away at a civilization from the inside. They tried to find us. They sent scouts into 100 systems. They built new scanners. They put cameras on every ship. They watched their own trade routes every second of every day. They found nothing because we were never there when they looked. We watched their scouts from the cover of gas clouds. We listened to their new scanners and learned their weaknesses. We danced around them like ghosts around a candle, and they could not see us, but they could feel the air move. It was at the end of the 2nd year that I gave Nora Fisher the signal. She had been ready for a long time. She had built a device that could reach into the Conquered shared mind from any point in the galaxy, as long as we had a Conquered ship to act as a gateway. We had captured such a ship months ago. It sat in our dock, quiet and intact, its crew living comfortably on our holding world. Nora had plugged her device into its central system. She had rehearsed the process 100 times. She had written the message herself, and she had practiced it out loud until she could say it without crying. "Are you sure?" she asked me. "I am sure. Once we do this, they will know we exist. They will know someone is out here. They will come looking with everything they have." "I know. There is no going back." "There was never any going back, Nora. There has not been any going back since the day they burned the oceans." She nodded. She pressed the button. The message went out. It traveled through the Conquered web at the speed of thought, faster than any signal can travel through normal space. In one single moment, every Conquered mind in the galaxy, from the deepest colony to the brightest capital world, heard one sentence. They heard it in their own language, in the voice of someone they trusted most, whether that was their own mother or father or partner or child. It spoke inside their heads as clearly as their own thoughts. The sentence was this: "You should not have come to our world." That was all. No threats, no demands, no explanation. Just that one line, spoken in the most loved voice each of them knew. The effect was worse than I had expected. Across 1,000 worlds, millions of Conquered citizens fell into a deep shock, not from the words, from the violation. Their shared web had never been spoken into by an outside voice. It had been their safe place since the day their species was born. It was where they dreamed together. It was where they trusted each other. To have something foreign speak inside it was, for them, like finding a stranger standing over your bed at night. Whole cities went quiet as their people simply sat and stared at nothing. Hospitals filled. Governments slowed. The conquered council called emergency meetings. They tried to clean the web. They tried to find the source. They could not. Nora had covered her tracks perfectly. The message had come from everywhere and nowhere. An admiral named Voskarak made a broadcast to the galaxy. He offered peace. He offered trade. He offered anything to anyone if they would only speak. Tell us who you are. Tell us what you want. Tell us how to make this stop. I answered his broadcast personally. It was the first time any conquered had heard a human voice in 40 years. I did not show my face. I did not say my name. I played a recording. It was a recording made from the Endurance on the day Earth died. You could hear Captain Turner trying to open a channel. You could hear Hannah Price crying quietly. You could hear the moment the conquered beams struck the planet and the moment the communications from Earth went silent. All 93 seconds of it. I played the whole thing. I did not add a word. When it was done, I cut the channel. Admiral Voskarak did not make any more broadcasts. The conquered mobilized a war fleet, 8,000 ships. They sent it out in search of us. They scanned every nebula. They boarded every neutral vessel. They tore apart their own star systems looking for our hiding place. They did not find us because by then we were not in one place anymore. We had split into 100 small groups. We were in their shipping lanes. We were in their asteroid fields. We were in the dark between their stars, watching, listening, taking. Every week another conquered asset disappeared. A cargo ship, a listening post, a patrol boat. Every month another Nora message slipped into their shared web, sometimes just a word, sometimes a single image. Once the sound of a child's laugh. Once the smell of rain. Yes, the smell. Nora had figured out how to send not just sound but memory. We sent them the smell of earth rain falling on hot pavement. We sent them the feeling of sand between bare toes. We sent them the taste of sweet summer peaches. We sent them 1,000 small pieces of the world they had destroyed, and we forced them to feel it, to know it, to understand what they had put to sleep forever. Conquered citizens began to dream of Earth. They had never been there. They had only seen it from orbit once long ago. But now, in their sleep, they walked its fields and swam in its oceans. They woke up with wet faces. They wrote letters to their governments asking what was happening to them. The governments had no answers. Other species in the galaxy began to notice. The conquered had many allies, or so they had thought. One by one, those allies stopped answering their calls. They stopped sending ambassadors. They stopped trading. They had been watching, and they had done the math. Something was taking the conquered apart, piece by quiet piece, and no one wanted to be standing too close when it finished. I felt nothing during all of this. I went through my days calmly. I ate 3 meals a day. I slept 6 hours a night. I walked through the halls of my flagship and talked to the young officers, and I smiled at them the way a grandfather smiles at his grandchildren. They thought I was kind. I was not kind. I was only very, very tired and very, very patient. One night Hannah Price died in her sleep. She was 79. She had been my friend for 51 years. I sat by her bed all night, and when the morning came, I carried her body out myself. We sent her into the dark on a small ship with a green flag painted on the side. Green for the garden she had walked through once on the Endurance when we were both young and the world was still alive. After her service, Nora Fisher came and sat beside me. She did not speak for a long time. Then she said, "It is almost over, Daniel." "I know," I said. "Are you ready for what comes next?" I looked at her. She was not young anymore either. Her hair had turned white. Her eyes were tired, but her hands were still steady and her mind was still sharp. "Yes," I said, "I am ready." We left the quiet part of the campaign behind. The whispering was done. The ghost work was finished. What came next would not be quiet. What came next would shake every star in the sky. I called it the reckoning. The children we had raised, the engineers, the officers, the pilots, they had been training for it their whole lives. Now, at last, it was their turn. We came out of the shadows all at once. It was not one fleet. It was 100 small fleets, each appearing in a different system, each moving on a different plan. In one single day, we disabled 300 conquered military targets, shipyards, weapon depots, supply bases, command centers. We did not touch civilian worlds. Not that day. Not yet. The conquered warfleet tried to respond, but it was spread thin across the galaxy, searching for a hidden enemy that did not exist anymore. By the time they understood what was happening, half their shipyards were already silent and cold. The ships we used were not pretty. They were black, angled, and silent, and they carried the devices from the vault. Devices that our grandfathers had sealed away because they were afraid of what they had built. We were not afraid. We had nothing left to be afraid of. In 1 week, the conquered lost a large share of their military. In 2 weeks, they lost most of it. Their shared web was full of worry now. Every conquered on every world could feel the unease of every other one. Their greatest strength had become their greatest weakness. When one of them was frightened, all of them felt it. When a base went dark, the whole species shuddered. A new admiral named Telvora took command of what was left. She was smarter than Voskarak had been. She did not broadcast empty offers. She pulled her forces back to the conquered home systems. She built a ring of defenses around their central worlds. She said, in a speech to her people, that the heart of the conquered would not fall. She said they would stand together and endure. I respected her for that speech. I really did, but it did not change anything. We moved on the outer colonies first. Each one fell in hours. We did not send ground troops. We did not need to. We would appear above a world, broadcast one message, give the population 6 hours to evacuate on their own ships, and then disable the military equipment on the surface with a quiet pulse that did no harm to the cities or the living things. The civilians we let go. They fled to the inner systems, carrying stories of black ships and silent devices. Those stories spread faster than any of our messages could. By the time we reached a new system, the people there were already fleeing before we arrived. Conquered citizens began to understand for the first time what the last 40 years had felt like for us. They understood what it was to watch a sky fill with ships that had made a decision they could not change. They understood what it was to pack their children into small boats and run. They understood. I am not proud of that part. I am not ashamed of it either. I just wanted them to know. Knowledge is not the same as suffering, but it is closer than ignorance is, and I wanted that closeness. I kept the heaviest of our tools sealed. We did not use the matter benders on populated worlds. We did not use the star silencers. We took their ability to fight, and we moved on. I was not there to undo them the way they had undone us. I was there to teach them. A teacher does not erase her student. She only makes sure the lesson lands. There was, however, one meeting I had waited for. His name was Kavanik. He had been the conquered officer who signed the order to erase Earth. He had been very young then, ambitious, climbing. He was old now. He lived on a world called Kelthar Prime, which was his home planet in a house by a lake. He had retired many years ago. He had grandchildren. He painted. He had written a book of memoirs that mentioned Earth only once in a single sentence as a minor duty of his younger years. I had waited 47 years to meet this man. I was not going to miss him. We approached Kelthar Prime with a small force, only 10 ships. The planet's defenses were strong but outdated. We did not touch the cities. We did not harm the population. We simply broadcast one message on every channel in every language of the conquered. Kavanik, former fleet overseer, we know you are on this world. We know where your house is. We are not here for your people. We are here for you alone. Come with us willingly within 6 hours and not one civilian will be harmed. Every ship will leave this system untouched. You have our word. An hour later, a small transport lifted off from the coast near the lake. It carried only one person, Kavanik. He had not made his family come with him. He had come alone. I respected him for that too. He was brought to my flagship. I met him in a plain room with 2 chairs and a table. No guards, no weapons, just him and me and a glass of water between us. He was thin. His skin was pale gray, the color all conquered eventually turn when they are old. His eyes were yellow and tired. He sat down slowly. He looked at me for a long time. "You are Brooks," he said. His voice was soft. "The commander, the one they call the quiet man." "I am. I thought you would be taller. I thought you would have passed already, of natural causes." He smiled a small, sad smile. The universe is sometimes disappointing in its timing. We sat in silence for a while. I did not hurry him. He did not hurry me. We were 2 old men at the end of a long road, and there was no rush anymore. "I know why you are here," he said at last. "Tell me." I signed the order. I signed it in a room full of other officers. We voted. The vote was not close. I am not going to pretend I was the only one, but I did sign it, and I have lived with that signature for 47 of your years. Have you? Yes. Tell me about it. He took a breath. I thought at the time that I was doing something correct. Your species had a pattern. We had watched it. Conflicts. Cruelty between your own groups. We believed in our calculations that if your species ever reached the stars in full strength, you would bring those patterns with you and they would spread. We believed we were protecting the galaxy. And now, he looked down at his hands. Now I believe we were cowards. We used mathematics to hide from a decision we were not brave enough to make the harder way. It would have been harder to teach you. It would have been harder to trust you. It would have been harder to let you grow and prove us wrong. We chose the easy path. The easy path is almost always the wicked one in my experience. I said nothing, he went on. I have 3 grandchildren. The oldest is 7. She paints like I do. She is better than I am. She has never hurt anyone. She does not know what I did. I have kept it from her because I am afraid of the question she would ask me. What question? Why? I nodded slowly. I do not have a good answer to that question, Kovanik said. I have thought about it for 47 years. I still do not have an answer that does not taste like ash in my mouth. We were quiet again. I looked at him. I thought of my mother in her small house in the mountains. I thought of my sister and the baby named Lily. I thought of Hannah Price, who had died in her bed 2 years ago. I thought of Oliver Grant and his 3 sons whose names I had written in the ledger. I thought of Peter laying in the airlock. Then I thought of Kovanik's granddaughter, the one who painted, the one who was 7, the one who would one day ask a question. I believe you, I said. His head came up. I believe you are sorry. I believe you see what you did. I believe your grandchildren are innocent. I believe you have suffered in your quiet way for many years. He waited. But belief does not erase a debt, Kovanik. I have sat on a jar of ashes for half a century. Those ashes were once a garden. Those ashes were once children. I cannot take what I believe about you and trade it for what I owe to them. The math does not work that way. He closed his eyes. You will not be harmed, I said. Your family will not be harmed. Your granddaughter will never hear my name unless she chooses to learn it. You have my word on that. Then what? You will come with me. You will stand at the bow of my flagship beside the jar of Earth's last soil. You will stay there for the rest of your natural life. You will be treated well. You will have books and you will have paints and you will have food, but you will never leave that bow. And every ship that passes us, every planet we orbit, every star we sail by, you will see. You will see all of it. You will see what my people became after your signature. You will see it until you close your eyes for the last time. He opened his eyes. They were wet. That is a mercy, he said quietly. Yes, I said, it is, I know. I am sorry I am not a stronger man than this. A stronger man would have been harder. I am only the man I am. He bowed his head. He accepted. We left Kelthar Prime untouched. We took only him. His family never knew what had happened. They only knew that one day their grandfather did not come home from a walk by the lake and that the house was quiet forever after. I have been told many years later that his granddaughter grew up to be a famous painter. I have seen one of her paintings. It is of a garden with yellow flowers. I own it. It hangs in my quarters. I do not know if she ever learned who I was. I hope she did not. With Kavanik taken, the last piece of the reckoning fell into place. The conquered home systems were the only thing left. Admiral Telvora had built her ring of defenses, and it was strong. Many of our ships would be lost breaking through it, but we did not break through it. Instead, we waited. We surrounded the inner conquered systems with our small fleets. We blockaded their shipping lanes. We stopped their trade. We stopped their travel. We did not fire on them. We simply closed the door. Then Nora Fisher sent one last message through the shared web. This one was not a sentence. It was a single feeling, a long, quiet, heavy feeling of sorrow. It lasted 3 full minutes. It was not angry. It was only sad. It was the sadness of a child who has lost its mother. It was the sadness of a species that has lost its home. It was our sadness. It was the 47 years of our mourning, compressed into 180 seconds, and played into the mind of every conquered at the same time. When it was done, the conquered broke, not in struggle, not in panic, they simply broke in spirit. Admiral Telvora opened a channel and asked in a quiet voice what we wanted. She did not offer surrender. She did not offer terms. She only asked, "What do you want?" "We want you to remember," I said. "Nothing else. Remember what you did. Remember what it felt like to feel what we felt. Remember this and teach it to your children and to their children and to every generation of your people until the stars themselves grow cold. That is all. We ask nothing else." "And then," she said, "and then we go." There was silence on the channel for a long time. Then she said, "We will remember." We pulled our ships back. We did not enter the inner systems. We let the conquered keep their homes. We had not come to take their worlds. We had only come to teach. The reckoning ended that day. It had lasted 9 years. I was 71 years old. My back hurt when I stood up. My hands trembled sometimes when I held a cup, but I had done what I came to do. The debt, or most of it, had been answered. There was only one thing left, the hardest thing, the thing I had been avoiding for half my life. I had to decide what kind of people we were going to be now that the old purpose was finished, and I was not sure yet what the answer was. The ending of a long journey is a strange thing. For 47 years, every one of us had known what our purpose was. We woke up with it. We ate with it. We slept with it. It had been our parent and our master and our God. And then, on a quiet afternoon over the inner conquered systems, it was finished, and the silence that came after was louder than any mission we had ever flown. On the first day after the reckoning, I did not leave my quarters. I sat in a chair and looked out at the stars. I did not drink. I did not read. I did not speak. I just sat for 11 hours. Nora Fisher came to see me in the evening. She brought a pot of tea. She did not ask me how I was. She already knew. "What now, Daniel?" she said as she poured. "I do not know," I told her. "Then that is what we work on next." I nodded. I drank the tea. It was good. It was the first thing I had tasted in a long time that was not soaked in purpose. We turned our fleet back toward the place where Earth had been. The trip took 5 months. We could have done it faster, but we did it slowly on purpose. We wanted the young people of our fleet, the ones born in steel hallways, to see the sky in all its strangeness. We passed through dead nebulae and past quiet young stars. We sailed by worlds that had been cities once, long before any of our species existed. We made them look. We made them understand that the galaxy was big, and that its quiet places had been quiet for a long time before us, and that they would be quiet for a long time after. When we reached the Earth system at last, we found what I had known we would find: a grave. The sun still burned. The other planets still moved in their old paths, But where Earth had been, there was only a brown and gray ball, smaller now because some of its mass had been lost in the burning. It had no oceans. Its atmosphere was thin and poisonous. The moon still circled it, quiet and patient, the way it had for billions of years. We landed. We walked on what had once been a place called Montana, where I had grown up. There was no grass. There was no house. There were no mountains, really, either. They had been melted down to smooth glass, black and shiny, that reflected our boots when we walked on them. I knelt on the glass. I pulled off my glove. I put my bare hand on the ground. "I am home, Mama," I said. "I came back. I did what I said I was going to do." I do not know if she heard me. I do not know if there is a place where the dead can hear us. I am an old soldier, not a priest, but I said it, and I felt something move inside my chest, something that had been locked for 47 years, and it broke quietly like ice breaking on a pond in spring. I did not cry. I only sat there with my bare hand on the black glass, and I breathed. We built the monument over the next year. It was not a city. It was not a statue of me or anyone else. It was one single spire of dark stone reaching straight up into the poisoned sky. It was as tall as a small mountain. It had no words on it, no names, no dates, no flag, just the stone and the silence and the wind that blew thin and cold across the glass. We sent a message to the galaxy when the monument was finished. It was the last official message my fleet ever sent. It said only this: "Earth is here, remember." The other species came after that, not right away. They waited a few years to be safe. But then one by one they sent envoys. Some came with gifts. Some came with apologies, though they had done nothing to apologize for. Some came to ask us to join their councils. Some came to offer us worship, which I refused with as much grace as I could manage. I am not a god. I am a tired old man who did a heavy thing for a reason, and the reason does not make me holy. The conquered sent no envoy. I did not expect one. They kept to their inner systems and lived quietly. Their numbers were smaller. Their shared web was different now. Every conquered child who was born after the reckoning was born with a memory that was not theirs. A memory of a blue planet. A memory of a 93-second sound. A memory of a very long silence. They did not know why, but they carried it, and they carry it still. Some of them, I have been told, paint paintings about it. One of those painters was Kavanik's granddaughter, who became famous for her images of gardens that did not exist anymore. Kavanik himself passed 8 years after the reckoning. He passed on the bow of my flagship as I had promised him he would. He was sitting in his chair, looking out at a yellow star that had once been the capital of his trading guild. He did not suffer. He simply closed his eyes and did not open them again. We put his ashes in a small wooden box and returned them to his family. They received them without comment. His granddaughter painted a garden on the top of the box, I was told. I hope that is true. Our fleet scattered after the monument was built. Some of our people chose to stay on dead Earth, to live in small shelters near the spire and tend to its base. Others wanted to see new things. They took ships out into the galaxy to explore worlds that the conquered had kept closed for centuries. Still others chose to settle on a green planet we had found years ago, deep in the dark, a world with blue oceans and white clouds and soft green grass. They named that planet second. It was not Earth. It was never going to be Earth, but it was green and their children could run on it. Nora Fisher went to second. She wanted to study its plants. She was 74 when she left. She hugged me before she boarded her ship. She said, "Thank you, Daniel, for all of it, for the hard parts too." "Thank you, Nora," I said. "I could not have done any of it without you." She smiled. "Yes, you could have, but you would not have wanted to." "That is true." She boarded her ship. I watched it lift off. I did not see her again, but she wrote me letters for the rest of her life. She lived to be 96. She grew a garden on second. She sent me a pressed flower from it once. I kept it in the ledger next to the photograph of Lily. As for me, I stayed on Earth. I built a small house near the base of the monument. It was nothing fancy. 2 rooms, a stove, a bed, a chair. The air outside was not breathable without a mask, but inside, behind sealed doors, I could take my mask off and sit by the window and look out at the black glass in the dark spire. I had books. I had tea. I had an old dog, a small one, that one of my officers had brought me from Second. I named her Pepper because she had black spots and a fiery personality. I lived in that house for 19 years. I wrote sometimes. I wrote down the names of every person I could remember from the Endurance. I wrote down the names of every person I had ever lost. I wrote down the story of the reckoning as honestly as I could, not making myself better or worse than I had been. I did not publish any of it. It was not for the public. It was only for me and for whoever came after, if anyone ever wanted to know. Visitors came now and then. Young people from Second or from the small settlements elsewhere. They came to see me, the last commander, the quiet man. They came with questions. I answered them as best I could. I tried not to lie, and I tried not to make them feel worse than they needed to feel. One of them, a girl about 19, came to see me in my last year. Her name was Martha Vance. She was the great-granddaughter of my younger brother, who had been on Earth when it ended. I had not known until then that any of his line had survived. One of his sons had been off-world on a research ship when the Conquered came. That son had lived and had children, and those children had children, and Martha was one of them. She brought a photograph. It was of my brother and me, as small boys, standing in a field of yellow flowers. I had never seen the photograph before. I did not know how it had survived. She said it had been in a small box passed down through her family for generations. I held it in my old hands. I looked at it for a long time. "What was his name?" Martha asked. "Your brother, the one in the picture." "Henry," I said. "His name was Henry. He was 2 years younger than me. He liked to climb trees. He was afraid of thunderstorms. He laughed when he was scared, which is a strange thing for a boy to do." "Tell me more." So I told her. I told her about Henry and about our mother and about our sister Ellen, who had been 18 when the sky burned and who had just had a baby. I told her about the town we grew up in, and the river that ran past it, and the old yellow dog my father had when we were boys. I told her everything I could remember. I talked until the sun went down, and then I kept talking, and Martha listened without saying a word. At the end, she asked me one question. "Grandfather Daniel," she said, though I was not her grandfather exactly, "do you think we did the right thing?" I thought about that for a long time. "I think," I said finally, "that we did what we could live with, not what was right, not what was wrong. There was no right or wrong at that scale, Martha. There was only what we could live with afterward and what we could not, and we chose the thing we could live with, most of us." "Is that the same as right?" "No," I said, "it is not. But sometimes when the world ends, it is the closest thing to right that a person can reach." She nodded slowly. She stayed with me for 3 more days. She helped me sort my papers. She walked with me to the base of the spire. She took notes when I talked. I believe she became a teacher after that. I believe she taught children what I told her. I am glad if that is true. The night before I passed, I walked out to the base of the spire alone. It was cold. The dog Pepper had left me a year before, so I was truly alone now. The glass under my boots glittered in the starlight. I had my mask on. My breath made small clouds inside it. I stood at the base of the stone. I put my hand on it. It was warmer than I expected. The stone held onto the day's sunlight. It was the only warmth on the whole planet. I looked up at the sky. The stars were bright and there were many of them. Some of them, I knew, had been conquered worlds long ago. Some of them were places where my fleet had flown. Some of them were Second, where Nora had grown her garden. Some of them were places I had never been and would never be. They were all quiet, every single one of them. When I was a boy, my mother had told me that the stars sang. She said if you listened carefully on a clear night, you could almost hear them. I had never heard them, but I had believed her because she was my mother, and she would not have told me a thing that was not true in some way. I listened that last night at the base of the spire on the dead glass of Montana, in the poisoned air of a dead world. I listened as hard as I could. The stars did not sing, the stars did not speak. They only shone, and they were quiet, and the quiet was not empty. The quiet was full. It was full of everything that had happened. It was full of every name I had written in the ledger. It was full of every face I had ever loved. It was full of my mother and my sister and the baby Lily, and of Hannah Price and Oliver Grant and Peter Lang, and of Nora Fisher and Ava Lowell and Kovanik and his granddaughter, and of every conquered child who now carried a memory they did not understand. The quiet was the song, I realized. It had been the song all along. The stars had stopped singing their old song because a new one was being written, and the new one was made of silence, and the silence was ours. "We remembered, Mama," I said out loud into the empty air. "I promise you, we remembered, and they remember too now. Everyone remembers." I turned and walked back to my house. I went inside. I took off my mask. I sat down in my chair. I pulled a blanket over my knees, and I closed my eyes, and I thought about my brother Henry climbing a tree in a field of yellow flowers, and about a small baby named Lily who had her mother's eyes. I did not open my eyes again. They found me the next morning. They buried me at the base of the spire as I had asked. They put no stone over me, no name, nothing to mark the place. I had told them many times that I did not want to be remembered as a person. I wanted the remembering to go to the ones who had deserved it. My mother, my sister, Lily, Henry, the billions who had not been given a chance to become old and tired people like me. So there is no grave for Daniel Brooks. There is only the spire, and if you walk around it, you walk over me, and you do not know it, and that is how it should be. The galaxy is quiet now, not empty, just quiet. The species that survived keep to themselves. They trade carefully. They speak softly. They raise their children to be kind, and they tell them the story of a small blue world that was put to sleep by a mistake, and of a people who came back out of the dark to teach the stars a new silence. Humans are still out there, here and there, on second, on a dozen other worlds. They are not many. They do not rule. They do not build great empires. They grow gardens. They write books. They have children. They live. And somewhere on every one of those worlds, there is a small jar with a handful of ash inside it. And somewhere, in every one of those children, there is a word they learn before any other. The word is remember. The stars have learned it too. They carry it in their long silence. They will carry it until they grow cold. And even then, I think, the silence will hold. Because some things, once they are spoken into the sky, are never really forgotten, no matter how long the night lasts.